there's some emerging news around what's happening in Minnesota and ICE, Customs and Border Patrol, DHS's action there that is helping me realize that I think I fundamentally misunderstood some of the dynamics that are at play inside DHS, some of the movers and shakers, some of the political maneuverings that are happening there. Because I said last night on Blue Sky, and I've been thinking this for a while, like, where's the Night of Long Knives? It's coming. It's going to happen. Where is the Night of Long Knives, and what's that going to look like? ICE are functionally the SA. They're the brown shirts. They're untrained. They're a bunch of lawless thugs that the regime has unleashed and said, do whatever you want, commit all the crimes, do all the things. We're going to pretend that you have absolute immunity, even though J.D. Vance has now walked back that statement. They've offered them these big signing bonuses, but you have to work for ICE for 5 years before you get it. None of them are going to last 5 years, right? These are the guys who are going to be the fall guys. These are the patsies, the ones who are going to end up being hung out to dry by the regime. So whether or not there's going to be a physical Night of Long Knives or not, there's definitely going to be some kind of functional, bureaucratic, administrative Night of Long Knives, especially as we are seeing the discourse rising amongst American elected officials that, like, hey, in the post-Trump era, these ICE fucks, they need to be on a list. Eric Swalwell, he's currently a congressman, who's running for governor in California, he said that if he gets elected, former ICE and current ICE, obviously, should not be allowed to work for the state of California. They should not be allowed to have a government job. They should not be allowed to have a driver's license. There are multiple other public figures who've talked about how we need to have an ICE registry, kind of like a sex offender registry. You got to know who these guys are. And of course, obviously, all of these ICE chuds have to be prosecuted for the crimes that they're committing now against Americans, against immigrants here, which are just like, it's going to be a huge task, y'all. But we've got to do it. It's really important for us, I think, as a country to prosecute DHS agents for the crimes that they are committing now. And I kind of thought, if ICE is the SA, if they're the brown shirts, then who's the Schutzstaffel? Who's the SS that's going to come in, And what we've seen so far is that ICE are inept, violent, lawless, but Customs and Border Patrol they're a whole other level of nasty. They are absolutely more vicious, and they feel empowered to be more violent, more lawless. And in areas where ICE has come in initially, when they have not sufficiently scared the shit out of Americans, because they're not going to scare us out of standing up for our rights, when they've not sufficiently chilled dissent, then you see Customs and Border Patrol come in. You saw it with the Midway Blitz in Chicago, and you're watching it right now in Minnesota. Yeah, so ICE wasn't getting it done for Daddy Donald, so they had to bring in Greg Runt Bovino, who thinks he's Mr. SS in the U.S., and his violent Border Patrol agents. And to me, I was like, okay, is this, I know that history doesn't, it's not totally analogous, and I know history doesn't actually repeat itself, but it definitely is a thing that authoritarian regimes do follow patterns. So you have this initial band of like clueless goons who just hate women and they hate immigrants, and they're a bunch of Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and you've rounded them up. You've not given them any training, but you've given them $4,000 worth of kit, and you've sent them out and been like, violate the rights of all of these people, do whatever you want, you'll get away with it. Totally. We're not going to make you guys the fall guys. And so I really thought that Border Patrol was going to start to edge out ICE. And I'm not the only one who's been saying that. And maybe that was the plan. Maybe that was the plan all along. I mean, I'm sure it was Greg Bovino's plan. He thought he was going to come in and edge out Tom Homan. I think he probably had, ideas, plans, ambitions to edge out Kristi Noem, because there's been rumbling for several months that Kristi Noem is very unpopular. She's also another person who's really good, like a good target for becoming a fall guy patsy. After all, the regime hates women. It's going to happen that they're going to start to push these women out as they consolidate their white Christian nationalist patriarchal agenda, their Project 2025 agenda. There's no room for women to be in positions of authority. Kristi's been useful to them up until now, but we all know that her days are numbered. I think particularly now as we're seeing Republicans today and late yesterday start to criticize her pretty publicly, and we're seeing more momentum build for impeaching Kristi Noem. I think if they need somebody to take a fall, it's going to be her. But I really thought that Greg Bovino was going to come in and kind of supplant, and Customs and Border Patrol was going to kind of come in and take over from ICE, and ICE was going to slowly be transitioned, things were going to get shaken up. So I was really quite shocked to hear that they're now pulling Bovino and Customs and Border Patrol back from Minnesota. I bet Greggy is raging pissed over it, but they're bringing in Tom Homan. They announced earlier today they're bringing in Tom Homan, who in and of himself is also just like a despicable piece of shit. There's a devout Catholic man who's committing an ethnic cleansing against millions of Catholics. And where's the Catholic Church? How is it, by the way, that J.D. Vance and Tom Homan are still allowed to take communion? Why are they not excommunicated yet? How is it that they are allowed to take communion when they are committing an ethnic cleansing against millions of Catholics? Like, pretend that we don't care about anybody else. I don't understand it. I've asked Catholics to explain it to me, and they try and tell me that trad Caths are a whole other thing. And I know there's an awful lot of white supremacists amongst trad Cath culture. Okay, before I get on that tangent about Tom Homan, so we're hearing news just in the last couple of hours that Greg Bovino is set to exit Minneapolis because Donald Trump is frustrated over the fallout around the murder of Alex Preddy. So this is probably the most important takeaway from all of this. CNN says administration officials were left, quote, deeply frustrated this weekend over how Greg Runt Bovino and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem have handled the fallout over the fatal shooting of Alex Preddy in Minneapolis. According to one official, Trump spent several hours on Sunday and Monday watching news coverage, wonder how many times he fell asleep during that, and was unhappy by how his administration was coming across. Yeah, so if you don't know, Fox News actually has been criticizing. Fox News is like, we call bullshit, so you know it's got to be exceptionally bad.
Another individual is dead at the hands of Border Patrol. Let's be clear. We do not know if there was any pushback from this individual who was armed. We do not have evidence that he was waving a gun, doing anything to threaten Border Patrol. He had his phone and he was shooting, he was viewing and recording the incident. That's what he was doing, recording the incident.
We don't need to hear the lies that James Comer is going to spew in response to that, but that was Maria Bartiromo being like, yeah, no, he didn't do anything wrong. He was simply recording.
We certainly should not be labeling him as being a domestic terrorist who is going to execute cops. There's no evidence to support that.
That was on Fox News. That was on Fox News. So Kristi Noem, Stephen Miller, and Greg Runt Bovino all have made claims that VA intensive care nurse, an entirely decent human being, Alex Preddy, was a would-be assassin and a domestic terrorist. They jumped the shark with this smear campaign. They took it way too far. Thank God for the documentary evidence, for Pink Coat Lady having filmed the whole thing. Thank God for regular, ordinary Minnesotans who are documenting the shit out of what is happening, because we can so easily, quickly dispel the lies of the regime. Even Fox News isn't buying it. And Donald Trump saw all of that, and he's big mad. And so as a response, they're pulling Greg Bovino out. They're pulling Greg Bovino out, and it's not clear yet. Greg Bovino said, by the way, that the men who murdered Alex are still on the job. These fucks thought they could say whatever they want, smear Alex's name, lie, engage in a cover-up, and get away with it. The American people, we are not letting them get away with it. Greg Bovino said that Alex planned to massacre, he used that word, massacre, federal agents. And nobody is fucking buying his bullshit claims, so much so that even Fox News is like, no. And Donald Trump sees that, and it's an embarrassment to him. Look at the cue the narcissistic injury. And so he is pulling Bovino back and putting Homan in. The question then becomes, what do we do next? How do we keep up the pressure next? There is building momentum for impeaching and removing Kristi Noem. How do we get behind that? How do we help shift the public discourse to a point where Donald Trump has to fire her and fire Greg, or elected officials realize that they don't have any other alternative but to remove that bitch from office? Sorry, I don't usually call other women bitches, but she's a fucking piece of work.